So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Hoare from TU Dublin, and welcome to the 8th of our 10 series looking at the technology trends in 2021 that are impacting on the construction industry. Today's focus is Immersive Technologies, AR, VR, and to date we've looked at a variety, or a cocktail, I suppose, of technologies that are all, I suppose, promising to disrupt the construction industry, but in a positive way. We've looked at cloud-based construction management software, VIM, of course, IoT, sensor technology, drones, digital twins, e-commerce, and robotics. So today we have three speakers. We have Michael Galbraith from ARUP, who's their Immersive Technology specialist. We have Cathal O'Donnell from Linesight, who's the BIM lead in Linesight, and also Jonathan, a regular contributor to our series over the years, is a technology consultant with Diatec. So you're all very welcome. So we've got our program here this afternoon. And so Michael's going to sort of, I suppose, demystify the whole area of immersive technologies. And sometimes it's confusion between the difference between AR and VR. And of course, many of you know that ARUP are, very innovative in their use of technologies. So it'll be very interesting to hear Michael's message. And also Cathal will be looking at the impact of digital-driven technologies on site verification. Obviously, that's one of the key functions of AR or VR. And then Jonathan will be looking at realistic BIM visualization for architects, engineers, and contractors. So I'd encourage you all to put your questions into the chat. We do always appreciate, the input from our delegates, and also to thank all our sponsors for this series. We're currently working on our 22 series, and we'll be announcing that later next month. So if you want to just bring us to the next slide there, Linnea, thank you. So we're rolling out another series of regional meetings on the 15th to 19th of November. Just putting together the program now. So if any of you who are with us today would be interested perhaps in speaking at those regional events, please get in contact with the admin at CitA.ie or with Elenia at CITA. So the next slide, please. And just on the backdrop, I suppose, of the BIM gathering, we had a very successful gathering earlier this month. And so, if you were interested in purchasing the gathering presentations, or indeed accessing the proceedings of the 21 papers that were presented in a formal paper form, they're also available on the CitA website. So the next slide, please. Is that our final slide? Yeah, so just to say thank you all for joining us today, and I'll hand you over now to our first speaker, Michael from ARUP.
Hey, how's it going? I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me.
So, Michael, you're good to go. I'm going to go on mute now.
Yeah, cheers. Hey, everyone. Thanks for everybody at CitA for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Michael Galbraith, and I'm an Immersive Technology specialist at ARUP. So the topic I'm going to discuss is why adopt immersive technology within our industry. So a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. First, an introduction and a bit of background information on myself. What is immersive technology? The 4 pillars that we like to work with. Some examples of our projects that I've worked on. And finally, why we should adopt immersive technology in our industry. So a quick introduction. I studied BA Hons Interaction Design at the Glasgow School of Art. It's a new media art program, and we were based in the School of Design, but the projects focused on using technology as a medium to convey conceptual ideas. So really letting our concepts influence the technology that we wanted to use. So in final year, I specialized in VR and AR and created like a immersive experience, which then led me to join ARUP London's virtual and visualization team in 2018. I spent 2 years over there. And then on late 2020, I joined ARUP Ireland's Group 2 to help set up the Immersive Technology team here in Ireland. So what is immersive technology? The way I see it is submerging yourself in a new digital environment. So it's allowing us to move beyond 2D and view design data in new ways with immersive sound and better understanding of scale and perspectives. So immersive technology hardware can range from real-time screen-based applications to using tools like VR and AR, MR, also known as extended realities or XR. These are a lot of buzzwords, so I'm going to go through each of them and explain it in more detail. So on the top right is an example of augmented reality, which allows the user to view information on a handheld device like a phone or tablet. So a quick everyday example that people might be familiar with is, Snapchat or Instagram filters on your face. And then we have virtual reality, VR. So this allows us to be fully submerged in a new digital environment. So you wear a VR headset, like the bottom left image. So you're kind of blindfolded and you put on the headset there. And you can move around a small space and interact with digital objects as well. And then finally, we have mixed reality. So this is merging the physical and virtual worlds together. This is used by using wearable VR glasses, wearable mixed reality glasses. So the glasses have a tiny projector inside which shine light onto the glass itself. So it lets you see the physical and digital worlds together. People are less familiar with this tool, but it's becoming more popular and affordable in recent years. So how has ARUP facilitated immersive technology? The aim is to use immersive technology to better understand how projects will look and feel before they're even built. So we use gaming software from the games industry to achieve this. Our aim is to further progress our standard BIM models with realistic textures and materials, as well as enhancing lighting design, ray tracing, and user experience. Ultimately, we want to use immersive technology to help empower the engineering process, as well as contributing to client engagement as well. So some facilities that we have in our offices, we've built, immersive spaces to engage with clients, as well as work in. So on the top left, the top image is our simulation theater. So it's an area where we can build and experiment with VR projects, as well as take our clients down for design reviews too. And then the bottom image is the iLab. So it's a small room. It's about 4 by 6 meters. It's got a curved 4K screen with 360 audio and like surround sound. And we've also shared the space with the acoustics team at ARUP. So it's great to bring, the visual and audio work together and see it in one facility. And then thinking about the future, we want to upgrade the iLab and build a dome projection room to bring stakeholders together. So essentially having no VR equipment, leading to a more natural and engaging experience. In this space, you would have 360 audio and projections, motion platform underneath, which would simulate, necessary movement. For example, if you're on a train or somewhere that was moving, to test like vertical acceleration, as well as having Smelly Vision to give users an idea of air quality when they're in different and new environments as well. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the 4 pillars that we use when thinking about immersive technology. So these are kind of like the building blocks within the immersive tech team here at ARUP. So we have powerful storytelling, objective decision making, interactive virtual platforms, and human-centered experiences. So the pillars as well take a fluid approach when on a project lifecycle, so you can kind of choose and decide when to use them. So I'm going to go through each of these now and explain it in more detail. So we have powerful storytelling. This is selling a concept or an idea, and it's making the project look beautiful and appealing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be verified. You're using this, maybe at the start of a project to help, build momentum and useful for stakeholder engagement. and you're really using your artistic license to kind of sell that idea as well and concept. And then we have objective decision making, which is quite the opposite. So this is kind of used in the midst of a project or close to planning. So everything has to be verified views, 100% accurate, and it's useful for like public consultation or planning. And we're trying to understand essentially like how the project will impact the surrounding area. And some of these outcomes could be video or photo montages, but as well we're using it now in VR and other platforms as well, more interactive. And then there's interactive virtual platforms. So this is understanding which technology is best to use in our projects. We need to understand, what the client wants and what our brief is, which then influences our medium. So essentially choosing which immersive technology hardware is best suited. So it could be, again, a screen-based application, VR, AR, mixed reality, apps, something based on cloud, and as well it's ever changing, and you really need to keep on top of what's new coming out and what could be useful on future projects. And then we have human-centered experiences. So this is focusing on extended realities, and this is utilizing the technology that we have. So in this example, we're working within the railway industry, and as part of the project outcome, we allowed the user to be mobile in VR and walk from the platform and then take a seat on the train itself. So the aim is to bring our projects to that next level using user experience design. So yeah, we want the user to feel comfortable and engaged throughout the whole experience and not get lost by the technology. So yeah, making that as fluid and smooth as possible. And then the immersive technology projects that I've worked on at ARUP. So within our simulation theater, we worked on a railway project. So using VR as our interactive virtual platform, we use the 4 pillars to bring this to life. So the user can move freely above the route and choose various site locations. Once at the ground view, they are within a 360 stereoscopic video with 360 audio, which brings hundreds of site locations along the alignment into the office. We can then move between seasons, understanding how vegetation and landscape might change. How could we demonstrate this without using immersive technology? We also built a 3D model of an area. So with the train moving along the alignment, which then the user can, view it from a bird's eye view, but then also tap into the train itself and view it from a, passenger's perspective. From here, we can understand what the train looks like from the inside, but as well from the landscape design, we can check what that looks like too with, embankments, cutting, testing as well, plant species and trees. So yeah, we're really bringing all those different disciplines together in that one platform. So another project is a VR training or simulation. So we're trying to understand how we can add extra value to the site safety training briefings that we're all used to. So before we go out on site, we need to take these. So we held feedback sessions, and we found that the spot the hazard was the most valuable that people were interested in. So we created 4 different site locations. There was urban, rural, transport, and construction. So once you're on the site, it's driven by audio. So it tells you, what hazards might arise, what your job is, what you're going to do for the day. And then as you kind of learn, these blue dots appear and you click onto them and it gives you more information on, any hazard that could arise in your journey. So yeah, this was finished in March 2020, but we're planning now to implement this across, some of our offices at ARUP, and people can use it, once they join and get a feel for what it's like to go out on site. So this is a new project I've been working on. It's AccuCity's Dublin model. So using BIM data, we added several projects that ARUP had worked on. So the first one is Boland's Quay at Grand Canal Dock. We'd been provided with the architectural model from BKD Architects, and we can view it from a bird's eye view as well as walk around at ground view as well. And we also added a typical office development. We are utilizing, user experience design to make sure the design hits the right requirements for our client and giving us a feel for the design before it's finished. We also added the Trinity E3 model, which was provided by FCBS architects, and again, giving us a better understanding of the interior finishes as well. And then with Bus Connects, we're using the city model to help with route planning and choosing the right design for the city. So then, why adopt immersive technology? So it's become easy to visualize projects, but at ARUP, we have adopted immersive technology to design the whole system and mitigate any design problems using these tools. We use immersive technology to identify constraints, improve the design, pick the best design, and then show people what that would look like at the end. So immersive technology not only plays a part of visualization, but ensures that we choose the best potential outcome for our projects. And yeah, that's it for me. If you have any questions, yeah, please shout.
Thanks very much, Michael. That's fascinating insight into the world of immersive technologies. I suppose, just very briefly, just to distinguish AR, VR, is it right that in saying that AR enhances reality while VR provides the fictional experience?
Yeah, well, AR is viewing design data on a tablet or a phone, so it's like augmenting the physical world through a tablet. But then VR, yeah, you're really diving into like a new submersive environment. You can't see anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Smelly Vision. What's that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a new concept that we're been working on. So you get it in like, you see it sometimes in theme parks, or if you're in like those kind of interactive roller coasters and stuff, these blow out these kind of smells along the route. So yeah, within the new iLab, that's what they're trying to design. So if you go into a new environment, yeah, like a favela, or if you're you can really smell what will that look like and feel like as well, and bringing that emotional side towards the whole visualization.
If somebody wanted to buy an engineering practice, an architectural practice, whatever, or a construction company, if they wanted to buy a immersive technology I suppose space, what's that going to what does it cost to buy one of these, something like the iLab, the 4x6 meter iLab you talked about?
Yeah, they can be expensive. Like, it's you're using, it's like going to like an IMAX screen. You're using real like cinematic projectors and that as well. So yeah, they can get expensive. But
I mean,
many facilities.
Yeah, many people may not be aware that Enterprise Ireland have a range of support grant programs, not only to develop your digitalization roadmap, and I think our next speaker will be talking about a roadmap, but also there's funds available to purchase technologies to help advance companies' use of technology. So, sometimes you look at the cost of these things, but actually organizations like Enterprise Ireland can help fund these things. So it's well worth
be good
looking into this.
That. Yeah.
It's well worth looking into this, particularly for the SMEs who are looking. But I mean, you would think at a design house, as they're generating the BIM model, like it would be so useful to have that experience. And actually, as an educationalist, I suppose in TU Dublin, it's definitely something we'd like to look at from the point of view of giving the students that experience as well. So that's great. So thank you very much, Michael. I'm sure there'll be some questions for you later on. And so it's not just about training or or about sort of virtual collaboration. There's so many more functions, isn't there, that AR VR can deal with. So thank you. So we're going to go now to our second speaker. Cathal, you're very welcome.
Hello everyone. Thanks, fella.
And so whenever you want to share your immersive presentation there, you can do so. And congrats on your new role, and I just want to take this opportunity to wish you every success in it. And,
yeah, thanks very much, Alan. So hello everyone. I'm the new BIM implementation lead for Linesight. Started here in January last year. So we're trying our best to roll out a lot of new things that we're going to just touch on in this presentation. I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. And first of all, we're going to just look at an immersive space for instance, that we can use a headset within.
Yeah, good to go. Okay. I'm going to go mute now.
No problem. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Perfect. Yeah. So what we're trying to do in Linesight, we're primarily focused on client interaction. So getting our clients on into the design and in kind of using our cost managers and project managers to facilitate our clients as best we can. And we're getting a lot more interaction from models and designers and contractors using models. So just at the very basic point to just say that as Linesight, we're not responsible for creating models, or we just are the receivers of models, and we use the models to quantify and coordinate and to verify site conditions, mainly in Linesight. So we're trying to implement a lot of features to do this mainly is going to be site verification that we're going to go through here. And this on the screen here is just one new thing that we're bringing into the clients, where they can actually come into a 3D space, a 360 kind of photograph. No guesses, no prizes for guessing this project. I'm not going to mention anything about it, but this is one of a very big project that we're working, and we're using a lot of this immersive technology on. So we really use the headset button here, so we can give the clients be it Oculus or other headsets that you can get, and we give them in a meeting. We can put them into these spaces, and we can walk through with widgets different aspects of what we're trying to communicate in that meeting. There's also possibilities to go into any documentation. So the kind of like the virtual reality methods that we're using really brings our common data environment to the fore. So our common data environment is SharePoint within this organization, and all our documents are linked back to that massive database in the background. So when we're in this zone or this virtual reality, we can actually showcase exactly what's happening on the project with live, relevant data, let's call it, with the project. So here, for instance, it's fairly basic, the model viewers in these platforms, but we find them very good for communicating intent to our clients. So that's how we run through some of our meetings that we do on some of our projects. So this is also very good for showcasing little aspects of what we do on sites. So you can input videos and things like that that we showcase. So this is us on site using some of the functions that I'll go through in a few moments to verify site conditions. So I'm just going to share my PowerPoint screen. 1 second. Okay. So hopefully you can all see this.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So this is our virtual project control. So this is where we delve deep into what Linesight are trying to do in the future. So as I mentioned, we are getting a lot more models and things that we have to go through. So we have to come up with a new roadmap to kind of bring in this new digital function into the QS, cost manager and project managers within Linesight. So this is ongoing at the moment, and it's going very well. We're purchasing new software as we speak. We're training up our staff in completely new methods of using digital construction rather than just the traditional workflow. So I think everyone in this industry knows that it's moving forward this way. So skip on. So we have our strategies coming on. So that's mainly to bring the models to site, so line site validation and digital plan of work compliance. So that's using measurement tools as well. So model progress on site, which we have to integrate our databases to pick up on model changes, not just site communications that go on in meetings. We have to validate model data, so it's important to get the correct information in the models from design teams and contractors so that line site can do their aspects of the work of validating those. So that all comes down to BIM execution plans and EIRs and all those other aspects. So site progress measurements are now being done most efficiently with VR, AR, and mainly mixed reality tools. We're finding mixed reality to be a really effective tool, and I'll touch on some of those things. And the ability to ensure consistent project delivery is a main thing for Linesight, because we're an international organization. We have to make sure these things work on all projects, not just one or two. So the single source of truth is one of our main principles, that we have common data environments that contain all this information, and flow of information is standardized, and we have this process run out on all our different projects. So I'm not going to go into this common data environment. All I'm going to say is it's an extremely important aspect, even when you're using these tools, that the agreements are set within the common data environment and the information flows through this environment to the standard procedures, so that we can follow it from a costing perspective or claims perspective, is what we probably would be considering in Linesight. So the information has to be in the models, as I said. Mixed reality and virtual reality, and these tools are great, but unless the information is contained within the model objects and the selection of that information is carried through to the virtual reality platforms, it's going to be missing that aspect. So inputting the proper package numbers within the elements to be able to select it in a virtual reality when you're on site, and tagging a percentage complete, let's say, for certain package items, that's extremely important from the side of the contractors put in. And we run through in Linesight a lot of these functions. We do a little bit of 4D, and we mostly concentrate on the 5D aspects of the costing. So 4D scheduling and leading on to 5D costing of the models, which gives us the data we need to use these tools in future. So if we have a tool like virtual reality on site, we can track the components that are selected, whether or not they are being installed at the correct time or in the correct locations and clash free. So Linesight's main objective is 5D, as I mentioned. So we do take these models into Linesight, break them up, put them into a software called Costex, which gives us linking to our rates libraries. We quantify and cost the supplied models to this function, and we input some coding structures within that, and we work with our contractors as well to keep an eye on the if things are changing within models as design progresses. So this is all important background information of where we go and why we need the information to use these tools that we're going to be talking about. So here on the left, you can see us quantifying using Costex, and on the right hand side, you can see the colored model, which shows changes throughout the design and puts those things in. These models are then passed through an IFC export and then used for these AR, VR, and mixed reality platforms. So just to go through a few small things about project controls in Linesight, and kind of like our roadmap. So we see the data within model elements as the most important aspects for us. So the cost information, coding information, the way models are broken up is important too. And then we unlock that data with the potential that's required for us to do our work. We integrate the costing within those and scheduling requirements within those elements. And then the decision making is improved, obviously, once we have early access to those model elements. And it's digestible data. That's very important. We're having discussions about how models are given to us, in what formats, and that's really important for Linesight to get correct models submitted to them. And so then you have to analyze all this data. So again, we're not going to go into deep on any of that. We're going to switch on to the virtual side of things. So we have to centralize data. It's for project platforms to improve the standardization with all our different disciplines. And then it's increased objective levels. And I'm not going to go into any of this. We have the roadmap in place. We're currently midway through this roadmap where we're taking in the data, we're organizing it within Linesight, we're engaging with our teams, we're rolling out these new softwares, we're at the very beginning stages of implementing our own BIM aspects, but it is on a journey and it is the way it's going to go in future. Yes, that's so the important thing, what Linesight do with all this information. So site records, we use a lot of different tools in Linesight to do our record keeping on site. Some of the most important tools have turned out to be 360 camera images and photographs, which build on our records for, let's say, claims, procedures, or even just progress on works. So in this project we've been involved in, we have access to the HoloBuilder app, which is a 360 camera app, which will take photographs throughout the site. And we have then a visual record, a 360 visual record of progress on site throughout the full dates. And in this section, we just go through just very quickly what that entails. So it is very important that we can access all the information that went on within the site at any one time, going back through a claim if the claim comes in. So I do then another aspect of our process is to do site verification with point clouds and photogrammetry. So we have a lot of Lidar scanners on sites, which we take a photographic image, which combines it into a kind of like a dollhouse model, which we can overlay on models. We also do a lot of point cloud surveys, and we're increasing that on some of our bigger sites. And I think we can, I think I'm going to switch out to this mode. I'd like to show you a few videos which aren't shown up on this mode. Just bear with me in 2 seconds and just share my screen instead.
No problem.
Apologies for that. Back to the share screen. Oh, technology lets you down.
I know, yeah.
So skip now down to this. I really do want to show these aspects. So this is the 360 camera records progress tracking on site.
Sorry, Cathal, are you sharing your screen with us there?
Yeah.
You need to go back and share.
It's
there we go. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So here we have the 360 camera records on site. So this is us using the HoloBuilder app. And as you walk through the site, you can actually take photos, and it'll show you on the screen exactly where you need to be to take the photo, and that records progress on site. I'm going to skip on to that. I know I'm taking up a lot of time. So with these photos, you can also do your tagging of site records. So it's very handy to be able to keep record of issues on site, and then have your client to be able to go back in to the platform and be able to zoom around the image like you can see on the screen. So then the point clouds are very important too. So we have point clouds working on, especially this project that we're on at the moment, where we use the BLK2 Go scanner, and it goes through, it scans as you walk, and we keep a digital record then in Linesight, which we can overlay on supplied models, and we can check on progress by selecting the elements and giving them a percentage complete in-house. So this is just some steel work on the roof of this certain project that we've done. This was done recently enough, which we found very useful, and we have viewers then where our teams can go in and actually walk through the point clouds to check that it is being used correctly. And there's plenty of other features in the background here which are really impressive. So we can then move on to Lidar scanning. We found Lidar very impressive as well, even for small aspects of a job where you have to quickly scan maybe an installation package, and you need a 3D model to overlay. These are in no way millimeter perfect accurate, but they are very effective for what we need, which is just a scope of the project at certain points in time and being able to overlay it on a meeting where you can bring these in and you can actually pop them on the table with your iPad using AR features. And in the meeting, then you can walk through what has gone on in that particular point in time. So it brings the client directly to the issues on site. So I'm just going to let this run. At the very end here, we actually take out the model that was scanned. We scanned the whole room with the Lidar, and we can place it in a meeting if we need to, as I said, and walk through that. Now on to some of the features that we found really good. This is a cost-effective solution from Gamma AR, which we're running out at the moment. But we are thinking of upgrading this as well. So in this next video, we'll just show you just a quick process that we checked mechanical equipment on site using the mixed reality zone. Even with an iPad, we find this very effective, extremely effective actually for tagging issues that we might find in the model against what's the site install conditions. And then that all builds into meetings that we can add to reports and keep a record of for our site managers and cost managers, project managers, and so on. So this is just myself creating a quick report on site and tagging an issue, sending it into one of the accommodation environments, which again is extremely important to keep track of these issues, and walking to the site, bringing the site model to site. That's the most important thing, because you will find a lot of times the models are being left behind, especially if they're not being utilized. They're just in the background. Design team members have access to them. Contractors have access to them. When it comes to the client, they might have a simple viewer, but this is really important to bring our clients directly into what needs to be seen. So here we have the mixed reality being used on site with headsets. We're running a trial on Tuesday next on one of these headsets. So hopefully that trial will go well and bring mixed reality actually to our team on the site. So then we also do other things, reporting. So we do timeline simulations, fairly basic ones, but it does bring it to the fore that models are the most important things to be sequenced on site, and connecting your program to that model element is really important. And there's other tools which I won't go into today, like Verity, which can check the consistency on your model versus the as-built condition, because that's where we are. We're checking the as-built from Linesight's perspective. And then how do we report all that? So we use Power BI dashboards and Tableau dashboards to bring the actual physical model elements and link them to cost schedule information. That's been progressed very well, and hopefully in the future it'll be the one-stop shop in meetings where you have a model element related to a cost element. And again, digital twins, probably the most important thing that we're finding, that at the end of the day we have a model that has the information embedded in it, and we can provide the backup to that information with these, be it 360 camera photos, point cloud scans, and your mixed reality, which is all back into your, let's say, if you're in a claims or arbitration or whatever else, that you can prove your case. But more importantly, for the client's in use of facilities management, where you can have an object, important information is built into it, be it cost, replacement schedules, and everything else. And from Linesight perspective, getting that cost information for next stage or facilities management is probably the most, it's really important aspect. So in summary, we have to use all the methods that we have available to us at the moment, be it 360 cameras, Lidar point cloud scans overlaid on models of point clouds, and then the reporting aspects of costing that comes from our Costix software to build on our clients' involvement. So again, client must be able to see what's going on, and our job is to communicate what we're getting from contractors and design teams to that client and let them be immersed in the results of that. I hope that was clear enough.
That was great, Cathal. Thank you. And I like the immersive feature of your presentation. It's obviously a nice sunny day as it is here as well. So no, really interesting what you guys are doing, and it's interesting to see that collaboration is at the core of your roadmap. I was just recently reading some industry magazines. There was some interesting articles. There was a feature there recently about top 20 contractors in Ireland, or top 40 contractors in Ireland, top 20 MEP companies in Ireland. And the common thread coming through there was that what we need is collaboration, not arbitration. And that, unfortunately, what's happening, I think it's just where we are in the world of construction and digitalization, is that we're using, old analog contract systems, procurement systems that really are not fit for purpose for modern technologies. So what we're finding is that, and I suppose it's just the nature of construction as it is today, is that some contractors maybe they're entitled to do so, are using technology as cash detection, not clash detection. So we need to move away from this where we use BIM, and you kept talking, I think you mentioned model about 50 times there. We need to move to an environment where we're working, that the model is the single source of truth. The model will develop and has to develop, and anyone that thinks that the model is going to be complete when you go to site is really not living in the real world. The design will have to organically develop as you meet challenges on the job. But we should be getting to a situation whereby, the model is developed, but that the price is kind of, that there's a price there that the client shouldn't be asked to pay for an incomplete model. That it's a big challenge, I think, for the industry, that we spend more time at the start getting the information correct, getting the model fully coordinated, making sure that the contractors involved much earlier in the process, because they know how things are built. They're not, as you say, and quantity surveyors or cost consultants, they don't develop models, they consume it, and they can only deal with what information they have. And if the information is incomplete or uncoordinated, then you're going to have extra costs. So we got to get to a situation where we're using suitable procurement vehicles, suitable contract vehicles and protocols, so that that you get the budget right at the start. But of course, you've got major projects, major infrastructure projects that are difficult to manage. So but anyway, listen, that was really, really interesting, and really, you
just a point on that, Alan. You're hitting on a lot of notes I find as well. From my perspective, we try to get Linesight members of staff involved extremely early in the design process, because the quantity surveying aspects, be it coding or the development, needs to be in very early to kind of do the cost savings that's required and put the budget in the model very early. And then there's the contractors that are using these models very efficiently. And I'm not going to go into any details, but
no, it's fine.
It's extremely efficient. They are developing with all these technologies, which is great. And we need to keep with them and maybe ahead of them in some aspects, because linking the model even to the drawings that are produced from the model using DWFX or other tools like that, because as you know, the contract documents are the drawings, but we find that the models are actually being used as the main source, and the documents, the drawings are kind of like a sideshow, that if you have to go back to a drawing to prove something, you will. But people are believing these models more and more, because we have faith in them now that we can trust the model quantities if we engage very early.
Yeah, and with all this information, you're creating more and more data, and you talk about big data and how do you manage all this data, but you know, at the end of the day, we need to move to a situation where the BIM model is the contractual vehicle, is actually a contractual document. Not because the drawings are a product of the model.
Yes.
There are so many, I'll finish on this, there are so many external forces now impacting on in the business of construction. Tight margins, you know, you've got price hikes, you've got shipping price hikes, you've got lack of availability of labor, you've got, you know, there's so many external forces, but the one force, and I think it was Michael that mentioned about the powerful, use the word powerful, technology is for us is there, it's very powerful, it's very adaptable, and it's just a matter of using it much earlier with everyone, including the contractor, to get the thing built digitally first. Make sure it all works as best as possible, and then you go. And you know, we're all in the world of business. So if a contractor genuinely has a claim, they are entitled to that. But hopefully, we can pick these things up earlier. So really, really interesting, Cathal. And I just wonder, one question for you: are we preparing our graduates sufficiently well? Like this, say, Linesight, are they coming to you? Are the 23, 4-year-olds coming to you with the skills, do you think, today, or is there more needs to be done?
I'd love to say straight out yes, but I find some of the college students that are coming out, especially out of your institution, are very well trained.
Thank you.
In let's say Castex or Navisworks and Rivet. But we need to roll that on all the institutions out in Ireland, especially because some of them aren't focusing enough on the quantity surveying project management side, which the QSs and cost managers are. Trust me, they're probably one of the most important people to be involved in modeling at any stage in any project. And that's what we're trying to focus on.
Yeah, and I know I was at an SCSI QS meeting this morning, and there was some discussion around that and the need for the ICMS, the International Construction Measurement Standard, to be adopted in Ireland, as it is in a lot of the developed countries of the world. So if we have a kind of a standardized framework, data framework for QSs, and that's integrated into the model information, because as you say, you get the model, but you need to get it in a certain structure to do the cost correctly. Yeah. It's a big discussion. So I think quantity surveyors, the professional that is quantity surveying, society chart surveyors, there's a lot of work to be done around that, and I know there's a lot of work going on. So thank you so much.
No problem.
Cathal,
and I have loads to say about that, but we'll leave that for another conversation.
Yeah. So Jonathan, good afternoon, and thanks, Cathal. So you'll take us through your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Cathal. That was really interesting, and Michael as well. Very, very interesting. I think what you guys are doing with AR and VR, very, very exciting stuff. And hopefully what I'm showing you today is going to complement that as well. Mine is probably more going to focus on the virtual reality side of things. I'm going to show you some, I suppose, uses of that in the industry for architects, engineers, and contractors. And then I'm just going to drop into the software as well, jump into a couple of different platforms, just to show you some certain workflows that you mightn't be aware of in how to, I suppose, use a virtual reality workflow within your own design firm. So thank you very much. So my name is Jonathan Reinhardt. I'm a technical consultant with Diatec, primarily focusing on, I suppose, BIM and processes and the Autodesk side of the business, working with architects, engineers, and contractors on a daily basis, consulting and advising as well with the team at Diatec. My background as a chartered architectural technologist. More recently, I've started as an assistant lecturer at TUD on the architectural technology course, and I've studied BIM management, worked as BIM manager, and also worked extensively as a technologist since about 2005 as well. So just to give you some stats and maybe to set the scene, I suppose this is from a survey taken of about 500 companies globally, just to see certain trends. This was back in 2019, but we have seen that the trend has continued. And I suppose that's the key thing to take from this is that, simulation analysis and visualization types of methods and workflows. We can see the bottom right back in 2019, 58% of all of those surveyed were actually using some sort of visualization method, and we've seen that trend grow. And even from my own perspective, I suppose in my day-to-day, I'm seeing a lot more of visualization techniques being used, whether that's AR or VR or other technologies. We're definitely seeing a growth of that in the industry year on year anyway. And then other sort of trends and emerging technologies that we see as well, just to put AR and VR in context, we see a 20% of those projects were using drones in 2019. And again, we have seen this increase, particularly with, I suppose, the market of drone manufacturers has increased. So the price has been driven down as well. So we're seeing a lot more uptake of that. 14% of those projects use AR in 2019. AR, again, we are seeing this being used a lot more. I think virtual reality, it was probably around a bit longer before augmented reality, so it's just grown, I suppose. It's just a little bit ahead of AR in terms of adoption, but it seems to be growing alongside it as well, as I'm sure Michael and Cathal have also pointed out within their own businesses as well. And then we've seen the use of IoT has doubled year on year from 2018 to 2019. And again, we have seen this happen. So whether that's IoT devices or IoT integrations with certain maybe building design sensors placed in different areas of a building, capturing movement, capturing temperatures, and lots of different building data as well. We've seen an increase in that. And then the key one, I suppose, I want to get across is that virtual reality. The popularity of that has entirely grown, and 55% of those projects, in fact, used virtual reality on their projects back in 2019. And again, we've definitely seen an increase in this, particularly with the cost of the headsets. If you're using a virtual reality headset, whether that's HTC or Oculus Rift, we've seen the cost of them coming down to very affordable prices for any type, I suppose, design or engineering or construction firm to be able to use. And like Alan said, you know, they're looking themselves in TUD to have some sort of BIM cave or BIM room, which we're seeing that grow as well in businesses in different formats, whether that's using a headset or whether that's using different types of screens. We're also seeing, I suppose, a good increase in that. And then just to break it down back to virtual reality, looking at kind of different types of visualization methods. And if you're an architectural engineering or construction firm, you're more than likely using one of these type of methods or a mix of these methods. So maybe you're outsourcing your virtual reality or rendering work out to a third-party company. Maybe you're performing it internally within your company, within the software that you're using. Maybe you're working with another piece of software and you're working between the two different pieces of software. So they're kind of the three key ones that we see in the industry. And I suppose one that we're seeing more of lately is a lot more of real-time visualization. So that's probably a piece of software that sits within your design software, for example. And when you change a material, for example, or move a piece of furniture, move a wall, that immediately updates without you having to export as well. So I suppose from an efficiency point of view and time management point of view, and even from myself working in architectural firms, real-time visualization, just I suppose the fluidness of it from software to software has come a long way in the last even 5 years from what I've seen as well. So they're kind of the key 4 different methods in how maybe you'd use visualization, and virtual reality also forms part of that as well. So we've got different types of software that you can visualize in, whether that's a rendered view, whether that's just some sort of still view, or whether you're performing clash detection. That's all type of a virtual reality. It's all a type of being able to communicate your design in a visual way as well. And that's the key thing, I suppose, about virtual reality is, you know, what is its prime function? It's about communicating a design. It's about communicating perhaps issues that are occurring on a design, or maybe it's trying to impress the client with, you know, a type of architectural design or material or layout that you're trying to use in a building as well. But it isn't just restricted to architects at design stage. Obviously, getting to construction stage for contractors to be able to see that model in a virtual reality environment, whether that's inside the software, they can walk through a federated model with the structural model and you know, an MEP model, architectural model, all in the one place. You know, that's essentially virtual reality as well. There are different levels to it, you know, in terms of the visual impressiveness of it, you know, whether it's just blank kind of colors in an image, but you can also get into, I suppose, more detailed type of imagery as well. And that can also be performed on site, like Cathal from Linesight has shown, using on-site apps. There's lots of them out there for iPads, Android, and mobile devices. Being able to pull up a 3D model, and whether that's pulling up a 3D model or whether it's using something like mixed reality, like Cathal pointed out as well. There's lots of tools and apps out there on the market as well. And the key thing I think I've noticed, I suppose in my few years in the industry, is definitely what has surprised me most is the uptake from contractors for new technology has really accelerated in the last kind of 3 to 5 years. Whereas maybe design technology obviously originated in design firms, maybe in the aeronautical industry, and then worked its way into the construction, into the architectural industry, kind of the 80s and 90s. And I suppose what we're seeing now is actual main contractors and subcontractors using a lot more types of technology, whether that's for capturing issues, like Cathal has shown, whether that's for walking through a model in augmented reality, virtual reality, or mixed reality. The uptake, it seems to only be going one way, and particularly when we see contractors working in that type of method as well. It feeds into the supply chain as well. Then everybody else that's connected with them is exposed to this technology, and it kind of snowballs from there, and definitely from what we've seen. And I suppose different types of visualizations, they have different purposes, whether that's for a lighting analysis in an internal space, seeing where you need to add artificial lighting, maybe where you need to add solar shading on a window. Is there too much sunlight getting in? For example, in this rendered image, you can see the lux count or the foot candles count at the window. Obviously, you're going to get a lot more sunlight. You're going to get overheating. If it's a classroom, 12 o'clock in the day, are the students are they going to have to open the window? Are you then losing efficiency in your energy system if you're opening the window? So maybe adding some sort of solar shade. As a result of this visualization, actually identifying that before it's gotten to site, because I suppose when I went to school 20 odd years ago, and hopefully there's some people as well that can empathize, there were always classrooms that overheated and windows had to be opened, and it just wasn't very pleasant. But I think with technology, particularly with a visualization type of technology, it's also able to perform a more analytical function as well as the visual function. So analytical being lighting analysis, and then visual obviously just being how it looks as well, the layout or the materials and finishes in a room as well. And obviously that can be performed in different types of manners, whether it's on a floor plan, again, getting different types of lux count. That's all part of a visualization technique. And again, it's informing you in a digital method or in a digital manner before that issue potentially has made it to site. You're able to capture that at the design stage. So kind of stepping into real-time visualization, and that's what I kind of want to touch on next. And I just want to highlight a software that we've been working with a lot lately that I've used myself in the industry, something called Enscape, which is actually a plugin for different types of BIM software. So it will sit on top of your BIM software. So for example, it works with Revit, it works with other types of design tools as well, all of the main types of design tools that you use, something called Enscape. It sits as a plugin in your software. It's not a separate piece of software. It plugs in, sits in your software. And I suppose the key thing with that is that you're getting updates in your second screen on the right-hand side, as we can see here, while you're moving something in Revit potentially, while you're moving a piece of furniture, while you're even changing the time of day, the shadows will change, and you can even perform that type of lighting analysis in there as well. And you can even add different types of materials. Maybe it's a different type of floor material that you want to show a client. You can jump between different types of options to show clients or developers or owner of a property as well, perhaps how that might work. And the key thing is that these two softwares work side by side. So your design software and then your visual software are completely interconnected and update almost immediately. And I do have an example model open in the background. I'll have time to jump into that before I finish up at the end as well. So you also, I suppose, have other types of visual being required, maybe at the concept stage as an architect, as an engineer, even as a contractor, being able to perform different stages of visualization at that very early stage, just to maybe explore different options as part of your design stage project. And this is relevant, I suppose, to all disciplines as well. We all want to know what the feasibility of a site is, essentially, particularly from a client and from an early stage design. So that's all possible through a visualization process as well. And this is an example video that I actually worked on a project a while ago. And this is using something called Enscape. And the key thing I want to get across here is that that this was produced in Revit. So modeled, your drawings, your 3Ds modeled once, and then you just turn on Enscape and create a video. So it's not, you're not duplicating information into a separate piece of software and then having to go back to another piece of software to make changes. It's actually all being done. So just the efficiency of working in that way, and then even the actual visual presentation of this in itself, it really brings a lot to different types of design businesses. And even from a contractor's point of view, I've seen this tool being used on site, for example, on a fairly large project. We had a BIM coordination meeting happening, so clash detection being done, all of that. We had the client in the office, lots of people around the design team meeting. We had the Enscape model, and they were more interested in the Enscape model because they could walk through it and see what it looked like, rather than what was happening with the coordination stuff. So it does impress clients as well, regardless of what discipline you're working in. So this is a video directly from Revit modeled objects, and we just placed the path in Enscape. Camera follows it around basically, and we want to show a client a couple of different options they could have in an apartment layout. Basically, and perhaps showing this to a property developer, or to maybe a building owner, or somebody else in the project. Maybe it's a public body you're working with, being able to visually show them at a very high quality. And that's the key thing, is the high quality of the output that you're able to pull from this, as well as getting that efficiency as part of that workflow. So we're able to place lots of Revit objects, use our Revit materials on the back of this. You can even see I don't know if it comes across on the screen, but the reflection in the glass is fairly high quality as well. And at points looks almost realistic as well. So that's just an example of that type of video. We then had a second option for this particular client who wants to see an alternative layout. We created a second option, just kind of move the furniture around, flip the kitchen around, stuff like that. And changed a couple of materials as well. So that was a video that was produced as an MP4 or as an AVI file. They were able to send that to the client then. But you can also interact with this information as well when it's inside your design software. And I'll go into that in a bit more detail now. So obviously you can still create still images. These are still very important as part of any design project at whatever stage they're at, to explain maybe how something is going to connect into each other, maybe how a floor level steps, even showing that as a designer to a contractor or to the subcontractor, explaining that before they get to site is extremely powerful, purely because they can see it in their head, as well as having obviously the detailed drawings to go alongside it. Another key thing as well is being able to get earlier sign off on materials from the client and getting their involvement at an earlier stage. And like the previous speakers have mentioned, getting earlier involvement of more people is potentially a lot more powerful when you have a BIM model involved. So using the BIM model again, with all of the information attached, whether that's information of specification information, or whether it's Uniclass or Kobe information attached at that early stage, having more people involved that are relevant to the project at that stage is quite important. And again, if a client is selecting a material or an object or something to go into the building, if they're using a virtual reality tool, they can potentially make a decision on that quicker, because they can see it quicker. They know what it looks like. They know the size of it in the exact space as well. So all that's possible using something like Enscape. And you can also pull quite impressive rendering images from it as well. So these are just still images taken from a model. And again, creating different types of material options. Do we want carpet on the floor? Do we want gray carpet, green carpet? Do we want a tile or whatever it is? You can present all of these options to the relevant stakeholder, if that's the client, for example, depend on the type of stage that you're at. And then even from interior design or architectural design, you can create mood boards as well to be able to pitch or sell a concept to a client. And all of this is pulled from inside Enscape as well. The visuals are pulled from Enscape, and this mood board would have been created, I suppose, in an external piece of software, but the visuals and the materials are all pulled from inside Enscape. So Enscape itself, as I mentioned, it sits on top of Revit. It does have its own material library. So the material library are really high definition materials, such as a parquet floor with a shine on it. You can see all of that in the virtual reality model, but it also works and sits on top of your Revit material. So it's not like you have to have, again, two separate software. You actually import your Enscape library, which are really high quality materials. You can import them into your Revit library as well and apply them the same way you would apply materials within a Revit type design workflow as well. So what I'm going to do now, just for a few minutes, I'm just going to jump in and explain some of the concepts that I've gone through just in terms of working with a virtual reality model. So if you're working with something like Enscape, it appears as a plugin just inside your Revit toolbar. When you then press your Enscape live update option, which I've already done this morning, it will bring up a second window. So that second window sits on top and alongside Revit. So it's directly connected to the project I have in the background. This is just a low geometry model that I kind of produced quickly yesterday. And essentially what this allows me to do, it allows me to rotate around my model. I can walk through my model, for example. I can, walk through different parts of the building, straight through the door. I can even look at the materials if I want. When you stop for a second, the render kind of gets really high spec when you get in really close to it. And again, this is a different material on the door. We've got a brick material on the wall. And the key thing with that is that I can actually go back into the software now and actually change those materials. So just as a workflow, if you consider this, so let's see where we are here. So I have walked in through this building. What I'm actually going to do is just select this simple wall. All I'm going to do is just change the wall to, I know one that has a red brick, for example. Simply going to change that. That will just take 2 seconds. You can see that's just syncing in the background, and just make sure that that's correct. And then if I go back into my model, so that material has immediately updated. The reflections then have updated on the door because the material is a different shade. So the shading on the door has slightly increased as well. So as soon as I change a material, it updates the model. If I add a piece of furniture, the same way it's going to work. I'm going to place a piece of furniture and the model is going to update immediately. And that's happening, it's only happening in one location, but then you're able to see it in this high quality render view that sits on top of your BIM model. And back to what Cathal had said in his previous presentation, the information attached to objects is extremely important. And working inside something like Enscape also lends itself to that type of process as well. So while I'm in here, I can also select on different types of objects. So I'm just going to big screen that. I can select different types of objects and I can inspect the different types of BIM information that are actually attached to this particular object. So I can select that door. It's going to bring me up all of my Revit parameters that reside here in the left-hand side, the same Revit parameters that are attached to that object inside the Revit environment as well. So it's completely interlinked. If I add my Omni class title or number in my Revit environment, it's going to update immediately in here as well. So potentially the way this works and the way I've seen it work again is, an architect might produce this model, they'll federate with the engineering model, the mechanical model, structural model, all of that. And what they can actually do is they can export this as an exe file. So an exe file is a standalone file that potentially the contractor could download at a design team meeting on site. They could open up this particular exe file, just opens up as essentially as a 3D file. They don't need any software installed, and they can walk through the model. They can inspect the BIM information as well. So again, that BIM information is extremely important, even at the design stage, and making sure that that is maintained through the project as well. So being able to visualize as well as pull in your parametric and BIM required information as well into that virtual reality environment is something I've seen change in the industry definitely in the last kind of 2 or 3 years anyway. So definitely working in that regard is extremely powerful. So I suppose what I can further do in here, I can walk through my model. I can go internally if I want. Here is I have a fairly low geometry model just because I'm on the call. I didn't want it to lag or anything like that. This is an Enscape object that we placed in. We have an Enscape library, but you also have a Revit object library as well that you can still continue to use. So these trees, for example, these are all Revit trees, your standard Revit trees that you place in effect. So I can still place any type of Revit objects that I want in here. If it's a tree, if it's a car, if it's a person, anything like that, it will still recognize it as an Enscape object. So again, I can open up this object. It converts the trees to kind of a more visual looking, realistic image in the background, and those leaves on the tree actually move as well. You can change the speed of the wind and stuff like that. What I can also do in here is change the different time of the day. And as long as you have your project located correctly inside your Revit environment, so as long as your project location is accurately set up, so your location is placed in wherever it is, Dublin, Cork, or wherever you're modeling, or London, any location in the world, it will automatically pull in the correct sun angle for those for the Enscape sun and for the Enscape sky as well. So then in Enscape, when you do maybe a shading or solar analysis, change the time of day. You can, so if I change any of the time of day, sorry, these are just different settings in the background. What I can also do then is fly through that as well. If I had a virtual reality headset, I could just click on that button, put the headset on, and it would automatically link into it. So you could have a designer working in Revit, they move something, and then the person with the virtual reality headset will see that immediately as well. So extremely powerful. And just to I suppose, back again to what some of the previous speakers had said, capturing issues is extremely important. Obviously, it's important at the site stage, but at the design stage, capturing issues, I think you'll agree, is extremely important as well. And Enscape can also perform that type of task as well. So what I can actually do is potentially I could select a door, for example. I could right click on that door. I create something called an issue. I could say, please hire door head. You know, and I could put in 2.4 meter head in here. You know, I'm responding as the architect, maybe as the client. I can even, it will automatically capture an image of that. So a still rendered image. It places a little marker on that. What I can now do is press create on that. So press create, what that does is create an issue. And if I have another colleague working in the same model, if they're using, for example, a collaboration tool like Revit Cloud Work Sharing, and if they have Enscape, when they open up this model, so if they were to come into Revit and open this as a Revit Cloud Work Shared model, when they open Enscape, after they open the model, they will see those same issues inside their software as well. So those issues are not just isolated inside their software as well. It's also complete multi-collaboration as well between different, whether that's cities, people working in the same office, they can still work in that type of way of capturing issues, using the BIM information and generating their design as well, and updating each other with the progress. So syncing the model, then another user might open it, you know, the next day just to see what progress has been made internally within the model as well. So just before I finish up, I just want to run through a couple of different things on this. So you can navigate around the model. So all I'm doing is just using my mouse. You know, I can look at the model, I can inspect the design, make sure I'm happy with it. You know, maybe look at the material on the windows. If I'd more objects outside, I could also see those obviously as well. You know, linking in site context, whether that's surrounding buildings, whether that's something pulled from a point cloud or captured in a different manner as well. You could also link that in. And the same for engineering information. I could pull in my structural design and my elements. As long as I link it in Revit the same way, it will immediately then appear in my Enscape environment, and I can see it in a complete rendered view. And if I just go up here, I've kind of got a copper roof on that. You can see just the realism of that actual roof in terms of material. The sun reflection varies, and it captures almost to a T how a copper material will appear on site. So again, getting that earlier sign off from clients is extremely powerful for material selection, but then helping the contractor understand as well, okay, this is, he's going to see immediately, obviously within the specification, but he's going to see visually then that this is going to be a copper roof. He can then understand and maybe pose some questions about, you know, certain details. You know, how are we going to add rainwater collection for this, for example? He or she is able to pose all those questions at an earlier stage when they have something like a virtual reality model like this. So that's essentially all from me. Happy to leave it there or take any questions.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's really powerful solution there. And of course, if you have the contractor and the quantity surveyor working alongside the design team at this stage, then we wouldn't have maybe the problems we have with cost management and budgeting. So that's really, really interesting. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So we're just looking at the time there, and we do have a question for, I think it's for Cathal. Just wondering how Linesight is adapting their requirements into BEP's AIRs from an early stage to ensure they can be captured, and how they identify who's responsible for inputting the information they need. So,
yeah. So we are starting to engage more at the beginning of the projects, as I have stated. With some of our, if it goes past that, and you're trying to convince the contractor to put in, let's say, information a cost manager needs, automatically you probably get a response that we haven't signed up to that, it costs more. So we are starting to engage a lot more with the design teams very early, so that we need to be fair, line-side staff need to tell the designers exactly what, let's say, cost coding information like that ICMS or ARM4 coding, which is being developed into a structure. And we could put that into the model elements at very early design stages, and that's written into BEPs and EIRs. Also the splitting up of a model, let's say, to suit a quantity surveyor or even a contractor, to create that model in a certain way, split it, as you probably know, per level for walls, but also, let's say, substructure 150 mil above the ground floor level, or for the footings or whatever else you wanted. They need to be split up. Models need to split up correctly and coded correctly at the very early design stage. And it probably does need let's say, a QS involvement in Rivet platforms, or feeding, let's say, the coding structure to a design team to help them assign elements with correct coding. So it makes our job down the line a lot more efficient and quicker for everyone. But that being said, there is unit class, obviously, that designers stipulate that they code to unit class and non-unit class and other classification structures. It's not the same as the quantity surveyor coding structure, but I see the quantity surveyor coding structure as a more important structure to be coding into elements, because it passes on to contractors then who split up models even further, be it on expansion joints and bores and putting in package numbers and stuff like that to align. And then at the end, you get a more comprehensive model with far more information coded, which you use the codes then to bring into the likes of CostX to structure your information in a hierarchical structure. And I'm not going to go into the details, but it makes everyone's life more efficient. But to be fair to that question, we need, as line-side staff, to be early importers of that information, if not in the Rivet platform, because we're not supposed to mess with models. We receive models, but we will be feeding an awful lot more into BEPs on
of course, yeah, I mean, Linesight will be consistently speaking to clients at very early stages about feasibility projects, all over the world. So I presume at some point in your conversation, you not suggest, but you just commit to working with BIM on the project, and that what Jonathan showed there at the end, like, it's so powerful, isn't it? I mean, this is the type of environment I feel like for ATs, Jonathan, this is sort of the bread and butter of what you do, but it's not the bread and butter for what we do in the college as quantity surveyors. So we need to get to that point whereby we're educating the next generation in this, working in this way, real time information. You can respond right there and then to increasing that door ahead. If there's a cost implication, you've got it and you move on. And so actually one thing that some of the delegates may or may not be aware, but there is an initiative by Building Smart International to roll out a professional certification program. It's a basic kind of program. It's like getting a driving license for BIM. But it's actually across all 22 chapters across the world. They've agreed this, I think, in 16 different languages. The UKI Building Smart chapter will be rolling it out. And of course, we're part of UKI Building Smart. I think all students in third level should have this badge. And it's like a driving license, and it's on your CV. People like Linesight could encourage their companies, their employees to get this. So you register, you can do a number of simulated tests, exams online. Once you pass, you get your certificate, and it just I suppose it gives everyone a kind of a level playing field and a certificate, and that's something that we're going to try and push in 2022. So we're fast approaching the end. That was really insightful event. Quick question, unless you have any other questions coming in for Michael. You were looking at the kind of the macro picture, and you talked a lot about city models. How are we doing in Ireland in regard to city models? I mean, do we have, obviously Dublin, we've got areas in Dublin. How much of Dublin City is modelled?
We have like an inner city model. It's basically like a strip. I think it's maybe 3 kilometers long. But then there's also other city models. Is it View City? I think it's called. Yeah, and they have a full city model as well. But then you also have the likes of Project Anywhere with Unreal Gaming Engine, and they have the whole world modeled. They have like it's not as accurate as AccuCities, but you still have like a basic model that you can add to and change as well.
Because actually on the next event CitA are running, which is the Circular Cities, is going to look at that really, because we kind of committed ourselves in 21 to looking at the whole kind of circular economy, and sustainability is obviously another one of those external forces that we keep hearing about, that we've really got to be a lot more sustainable as a sector. But I think you'll hear a lot more about that in November. So we're fast approaching, unless there's any other questions. I mean, Cathal, you seem to be making inroads and progress with your roadmap there in Linesight.
Yeah, it's going okay so far. Obviously, it's a big learning curve, because seemingly the QS have been lagging behind, as the industry knows, but they are fast catching up on the design teams and contractors, and they are seeing the real value of quantifying from a model just for speed. And my job here mainly in this today was to show any QSs out there that to be confident with a model, that we can verify these things on the ground, and therefore what you're quantifying is accurate.
And Jonathan, you spoke about 2019 stats there, but I suspect if you were to do a 2021 check on that IoT usage, is probably tenfold, given COVID and how, again, I was reading about all these CEOs talking about how they're changing their business models. I mean, the exponential use of technology in their companies has just exploded. It's not a factor of 2 now, I'd say. It's a factor of 10, 20.
I would say so, Alan. Yes, yeah, I'd imagine so.
So it's rapid. So listen, we do really appreciate your input this afternoon, and I might look to try and close the event, if I may. We've now got 8 minutes to go, but I don't think we've any other questions coming in. But even like what you did there, Jonathan, like, this is the benefit of these events. Anyone that attended this event will have seen the power of the technology and the advancement of the technologies. And again, I don't know what Enscape costs, but I'm sure it's a plug-in that design houses should really be looking for. So I'm going to bring it to a close, just to thank again our sponsors. The next time we hope to see you is the 4th of November for Circular Cities. It's the final event in our Circular Economy series. We then move to Regional Week 15 to the 19th of November. I think we've got quite a few speakers confirmed, but if any of you are interested in speaking, please contact Elenia or CitA@admin.ie. We're going to look at 3D printing on the 25th of November. Now, many of you will be aware 3D printing has exploded in use, and the advancements in technologies are amazing. I'm not sure if there will be printing 33,000 homes in Ireland over the next 10 years, but there could be a lot of components for those homes printed. And we'll hear more about that on the 25th of November. And then we're going to go on to what is a really complex issue, but an issue that's fast coming down the track, and that is blockchain and smart contracts. And the fact that, this is probably going to be a very disruptive, but also innovative development in construction. So we'll hear a lot more about. Someone will obviously hope to explain and demystify what it means, but also give some real examples of its use in construction. I know there was some interesting presentations at the gathering around that. So it just falls to me to say thank you to our 3 speakers. They were exceptional presentations, I have to say. Not just saying that, they really were very high quality. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Cathal. Thank you, Jonathan, again, for taking the time. Thank you for for the delegates for attending this afternoon, and above all to the CitA team who constantly amaze me with the support and the work they're doing. Keep pushing this issue. So we hope, and we're putting together a program for 22, and but we're going to need people like Linesight and ARUP and Diatec behind us, because we can't do it on our own. So thank you again, and take care, and we'll see you next month. Okay.
Thanks all. Thank you.
We'll give it a wrap. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks.